Jeep and Stellantis have been in dire straits and they can't sell a lot of these vehicles, so they're having to take some drastic measures.
After hitting a high in March 2024, shares have fallen by more than half, and shareholders are losing enthusiasm.
It is an understatement to say that H1 2024 results were disappointing and humbling.
There is mounting pressure on Stellantis' CEO and calls for him to step down.
We're only talking about how much will it cost the company to get rid of the US inventory.
Profits have fallen by nearly 50%.
And while we've heard some major discounts coming around the chute, the fact remains is a lot of these vehicles are highly overpriced. As a matter of fact, the day supply, according to Cox Automotive, for the industry average is about 81 days supply, whereas Jeep is close to 130 days supply. And that's even in the fall now, after all the major incentives were dropped here in the late summer. Quality control challenges for the plug-in hybrids. We're talking about recalls because they were potentially a fire hazard. So that has been one big issue. Rams as well, part of the Stellantis team as well, had troubles with a lot of the Ram products, their traction control systems, and no doubt that recalls have been a big part of the challenges and nemesis for Stellantis as well as the Jeep products in general, and the reputation is starting to take a toll. I mean, sure, Jeeps have that legendary off-road prowess, but when you look at a Jeep like this, you're thinking to yourself, what is this worth? $35,000? But you'd be wrong, because here you've got a Rubicon Jeep Wrangler, but this is a plug-in hybrid or the 4xe, and these don't come cheap. Of course, you get the hard top that's painted fender flares, and it's a very attractive looking Jeep, but it's a Jeep, part of the old Willys team. And what do we have here? A Wrangler Rubicon X 4xe, whole pile of lists right there. But how much? $85,000? And we're talking about Jeeps that are $80,000, $75,000, $68,000, and the list goes on and on. There seems to be a little bit of a trend here, and that's a big reason why Jeeps are not selling. They're marketing and they're trying to pitch them to the consumer, but the consumer isn't having it. During the cost of living crisis, the ever-increasing prices of a lot of these vehicles has put enough people on their heels. The worst part is now with 84-month loan terms, a lot of people are finding themselves actually going out and buying these and learning the hard way. Repossessions are up now. We're hearing repos are now at 6 to 7% on average of all car loans. And the fact remains is many people go immediately negative equity, and those equity problem means that for the first 5 or 6 years of owning this new vehicle, you're underwater. In other words, the Jeep would be worth far less as a new trade-in than it would be to what you actually owe on your loan. In other words, you trade that vehicle in and you've got to top up and spend an additional $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 just to get out of your loan. As a result, many people are defaulting, walking away from their loans, and repossessions are absolutely destroying the market. And then people like to think more about value these days, where money's harder to come by, and they look at this vehicle. Here's one of their smallest vehicles, of course, that Jeep makes. This one here is clearly the Compass, and yeah, it has some great touches. You get the little one-touch accent in, of course, a little roof rack on top. And a lot of people just buy these because they think this is the cost-effective way to go. But in reality, a lot of other vendors now, like Toyota and Hondas, are starting to realize that people are looking for value, and these don't provide the value, because here we have a Compass Altitude 4x4, and how much is that? $49,000 and 155. That's right, you read that right, $49,000. Who in their right mind would spend $55, $60 out the door on a small little Jeep Compass when you can buy a RAV4 or Toyota or a Honda CR-V and get a more reliable product for even possibly less money? And the owner of Jeep, Stellantis, is in hot water. A lot of their vehicles aren't selling. They're the kings of day supply. And while they tried to load up during the 2022 peak, when a lot of the inventory was not available on car lots, these guys doubled down. That's right, Stellantis built twice as many vehicles. They filled up their lots, and now with higher prices that they applied to those vehicles, thinking that they were going to capitalize, people stopped buying and all this extra inventory started piling up. That's why we're seeing 2022 and 2023 model years, still dozens of them across the industry sitting available. And flashy colors like this great little Jeep here is not going to get it done. Pricing is the big factor here, and quality's been a challenge too. Stellantis has had some struggles on both fronts. But how's that going to change, and what have they actually said? That's right, Stellantis and Jeep have made some recent announcements. And Jeep has increased prices from 2020 to today from $40,000, the average transaction price, to well over $50,000 based on Cox Automotive information. And Antonio Filosa, the CEO of the Jeep brand, is looking at making some more aggressive measures to actually help sales, since we've seen a 9% decline this year alone. And now, due to 5 consecutive years of declining sales, Jeep is looking at implementing a turnaround plan based on Filosa's. Jeep plans to sell about 1.5 million Jeeps by 2027, or at least 1 million of those going directly to the United States and Canada. And since 2018, Jeep has seen a decline of 34% in sales overall, which clearly indicates a pricing challenge as well as a quality control challenge. They went from about 973,000 units sold back in 2018 all the way down to 643,000 Jeeps sold this year alone. A major drop, a major decline, and a clear indication that pricing was out to lunch. And while even this year, with heavy incentives applied, there has been a marginal uptick in the amount of sales and buyers buying these vehicles, the sad reality is, even just looking at these vehicles, they're slightly obsolete. You get basic tires, a basic platform, and a vehicle that just lacks innovation, and people are starting to catch on. Seeing vehicles like the Compass doesn't show value, the Wranglers lacking luster, the Jeep Grand Cherokee is clearly priced too high, with prices well over $100,000 in some of the premium trim levels, as well as their oversized Wagoneers. Now they're grandioso vehicles. They're talking about bringing out the Wagoneer S this year, and as well, on top of it, those were priced way too high, and now we're starting to see some final action taken by Stellantis and Jeep to try to sell these Jeep products. Stellantis is trying, in fact, to get more sales and more motivate a lot of customers to get back in the door and sell products, because at the end of the day, this floor plan costs are starting to eat a lot of these dealers alive, and Jeeps are simply not selling enough. Yes, while some of the incentives we saw this late fall and summer, we actually saw an increase in uptick in sales, but it's not enough to move the inventory and the metal that they need to stay afloat. Well, there have been some discounts on the Compass right there. Well, vehicles like the Unlimited Wrangler were offered up some huge discounts this fall. They're saying anywhere from $8,000 to $13,000 depending on the trim levels. They were trimming right off the top. So they're looking at trying to really incentivize these product lines. They're not selling well enough. And so while those aren't selling, would you even believe it, the 392 version of the Wrangler, which was a vehicle that was highly sought after, like anything with that drivetrain in it, are not selling enough either, because even those were discounted by $1,000, which isn't all that much, but it's a sign, the small end of the wedge, that these vehicles aren't selling, and they're having to try to push everything out the door, even their highly sought after vehicles with the 392. And even the Grand Wagoneer like this, they're saying they're offering up some big discounts. We're starting to see for 2025, the Wagoneer, here's the Grand Wagoneer, of course, and the smaller version, the Wagoneer, are both large vehicles. They're full-size fleets, and we're highly priced. They're actually knocking off $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, as much as $7,000 on certain trim levels of the Grand Wagoneer, depending if you're getting 4x4, 4x2, the Wagoneer version of the Grand Wagoneer like this. There are some big discounts coming. Do you think it's enough to keep the brand afloat? Jeep is clearly slicing and dicing every one of their Jeeps and every one of their models with the idea and the hope that they can rejuvenate the brand and get the vehicle selling again and hit those targets that they promised by 2027. So a big part of the problem is the cost of living crisis. People are broke, they're running out of money. Even if they have the money, they quite often don't feel the value is there. But can we ever get back to a place where you're starting to see car loans again for 4 or 5 years instead of the 7-year car loans? That's a big part of the issue too, and the economic crunch that a lot of people are under forces these vendors to start to push these vehicles out the door and incentivize them enough to have people buy these and potentially go into a long-term financial investment by buying these types of vehicles. We know Stellantis has had some struggles, obviously, with some major shuffling with their executives, and as well Filosa is struggling selling these vehicles and coming up with a game plan. We're seeing the Stellantis CEO, Tavares, also leaving in 2026, a sure indication, and people are even suggesting and implying that they may even buy him out sooner. Clearly there's some major struggles at Stellantis. Do you in fact think Jeep can pull themselves out of this hole? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Drop a line down below, as well as check out the video. You're going to learn a lot more about what's actually going on in the business. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.